Another Let's Talk with the Doc. I am excited to be here this evening, and I keep saying that every week, but I'm being honest and true and real. I am excited to be here this evening, and I am even more excited because of who I have as my guest. My guest is Dr. Judith Duncker, and I can't wait to hear her story. And I'm sure you won't be able to, you can't wait either. And even if you've known her for a long time, I guarantee you there are some things that you're going to discover that maybe you didn't know because you didn't have the time or take the time or have the interest to find out. So when I come back, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Judith Duncker. So stay tuned, my friends. Good time to invite your friends and tell them, guess who is on? Dr. Judith Duncker is on Let's Talk with the Doc. And tonight, when I come back, I will be talking to her. ORB Ministry presents Let's Talk with the Doc. Grace Without Borders podcast. A thought for you. Ask Pastor. And a whole lot more. You never know what's next or who will join the conversation. All right, all right. I have with me tonight Dr. Judith Duncker. I am excited to have you, Dr. Duncker. Welcome to Let's Talk with the Doc. Great to have you on the program tonight.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. Well, the feeling is mutual. I am so excited to have you. I'm almost don't know where to start because just by glancing through your bio, I am so fascinated with the bio. As I said to you before we came on, I'm almost exhausted just looking through the bio and wonder which single human being could accomplish all of these things in life and still going at it. But before we get to the accomplishment, I like to track back with my guests to say, let's go back to your story, to your history. Where did life begin for you? When you first discovered that you were here in the world, where were you? Where were you born? What was life like for you in your beginning of days?
Okay, I wanted to start by saying how pleased I am to be here amongst all the great men of God and women of God who have seen on this program. I feel like a small little fish in
Really?
a huge pond of whales. So I'm just so happy to be here and to share my story. And I certainly hope that my story will strengthen someone, will make a difference in somebody's life. I was born in Jamaica, raised in Jamaica. My family lived in. We grew up in Pembroke Hall in Jamaica,
Oh, Pembroke.
and
See that
yes,
already. I guess what? The last place I lived in Jamaica was in the Washington Gardens.
okay,
Okay, of the boulevard, and we actually
yep.
had a little school. My wife and I used to teach sewing back then. We had a school in the Pembroke
Mhm.
area.
Well, my mother was a seamstress.
Oh,
And so sewing was something that was a part of my life. Of course, I hated it. During the summer months, I had to help her to sew. So I made up my mind I will have nothing to do with that because I remember those days.
all right, all right,
Uh,
all right, all right.
so growing up, of course, I went to my high school, which I believe I'm just going to jump over the elementary and primary school years. My high school was Woolmer's, which I
Olmer.
keep telling everybody is the best high school in the whole world.
Okay. All
So, and
right.
you all
All
better
right.
believe that in the
All right.
whole world. And so I uh, my high school experience was nothing. It was wonderful. Of course, it's an all girls school, and of course, some of you will know, educators will know that girls flourish when they're in an all girls school, and they don't have to compete with the boys. So it was a very, very wonderful learning
I'm
experience.
gonna take your word for it. I'm gonna.
So and we built very, very strong bonds and friendship. All my high school mates, if we see each other now, it's like we never left each other.
Mm.
I've got one on the a Zoom room, Minister Clover.
Oh,
I
oh,
knew her
okay.
from her eyes or at her knees.
Oh, wow.
We were at the same high school. So she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She'll agree with me that it was the best. Right, Clover? Yes, right. So my so I can tell you I got a very, very firm academic background, which lasted me until now. Strong, rigorous academic background. And I was just sharing,
Before we get to the academic achievement,
yeah.
siblings, where you fall
No,
among the
no, I'm not
siblings?
getting to the academic achievement as yet, but I'm
Okay,
just saying
okay.
part of the background was our high school motto, Age Quod Agis, which says, whatever you do, do it well. And that is something that has taken me throughout my life, throughout my life. I have four.
I'm gonna attest to that just by virtue of what I discover.
Mm,
By virtue of what I discover, I'm gonna agree with you that that seemed to really took root in your system.
mm, absolutely. Also, I have four brothers. One is 1 year older, and the others are younger. I have one
Okay.
brother in Florida right now, and so I grew up with the four brothers and one sister who was much, much, much older, and she went to she lives in the Bahamas. So we have not lived together for over I would say maybe 50 years. She lives
Oh,
in the
wow.
Bahamas, and I grew up in Jamaica. But one thing I have to say about my childhood years was I remember in when I got to, I must have been second year in high school, my parents got divorced,
Oh,
and my father left,
oh.
and he moved to Florida. And I remembered, and this is significant in my background,
Mhm.
when he left, apparently he well, before I say this, after he left, he came, he sent this huge box with beautiful clothes and shoes from America. And I
Mm.
remembered that so well. They were so beautiful. He only sent it for me. He did not send it for anyone else, just me.
No, no, and your brothers were born then. Your younger brothers, you're the
Yeah,
same mother,
yeah,
same
they're all
father.
born. They're
Okay.
all born. By then, they're all born. He only sent it for me. And I remembered shortly after that, there was a problem in that he sold the house in which
Wow.
where we're all living. And we just saw someone showed up one day and said, "This is my house. Y'all need to get out of the house." And
Are you kidding me?
I remember my mother stood firm, and she decided that she was not leaving, and she got an attorney, and she fought to keep her house. And she fought for many years and a lot of money to keep the house. Now, what that did was that she said he had to have gotten inside help to sell the house.
Mm.
And because I was the only one who got the gifts,
Hmm.
the insinuation was I was the one.
Really? So
Who,
how old were you then?
about 12.
12? Come on.
Right. The insinuation was I had to have helped. I had to have been the lookout.
Oh, the lookout.
So
Okay.
I don't know how I could have got in any way been involved in that. But that was the beginning of what I would perceive as very, very bad treatment
Oh
from
my
my mother.
goodness.
Very,
Oh,
very bad treatment.
oh, really? So your mother took that really seriously,
Yes, yes, very bad treatment.
and as a result of that, now you're facing the consequence
Exactly.
of what she.
Because I was the one who helped create this problem. It was
Oh my
my fault.
goodness.
I
Oh
somehow
my
had something to
goodness.
do with that.
Oh my
And for
goodness.
me, that was just Jamaican ignorance. But anyway, I have to say, now that I'm looking back, because the treatment was bad, I spent a lot of time at my girlfriend's house. And my girlfriend, she was her mother allowed me to come and allowed me to sleep there to escape a lot of the bad treatment.
Wow.
And I remember her uncles, she had two uncles. One was the Jamaican ambassador to the UN
That
in
was
Geneva,
that's your friend uncle.
my friend's
Your friend's
uncle.
uncle. Okay.
So he lived in Geneva,
Hmm.
and he would come back every once in a while to visit his mother, and they would sit there and they would talk about all the things that go on in Geneva. And I would sit under the bed and listen. And I said, oh my God, I wish I had that world. I wish I would be in that world.
Wow.
Her second uncle was a political science professor at UA.
So no,
And I would
no, I'm seeing where this is going. All right,
now you see
I
how
see where
where I
this is
ended up.
going. That is amazing. All right, keep going.
And so I daydreamed and I cried out to God and I said, God, if only I could enter that world. That world seems so magical. That
Wow.
world seems so, unbelievable.
At
And so
what at what age were you now when you're fascinated by this and
this would be maybe about fourth form, fifth form, going into I of course I did O levels and A levels. So sometime during that period, but I was a little older when I started spending more time at their house.
okay, all
And
right.
the uncles didn't come very frequently, but when they came,
Hmm.
I just took everything in and just cried out to God. Even though I wasn't a Christian then, I cried
Was
out
it
to God.
sorry, not trying to
Yes.
interrupt you, but was it because of the foreign experience or the positional experience? Which one was it?
Both.
Both. Okay,
Both.
okay. All right.
Geneva, Switzerland. Oh my goodness. For me, that was a dream world.
Okay, all right.
And the political science professor, he talked about government, and I'm thinking of all that goes on at high levels, the prime minister and meeting with all these different people. And I was lying under the bed because I didn't want them to hear me, eavesdropping.
Oh wow.
And I would just listen and listen and listen and just daydream. And now that I'm looking back, much of what I heard, have since lived. As I showed you I sent you some of the pictures.
That is incredible.
I've since lived. But let me tell you, if I'm allowed to continue with this story.
Continue because I'm going to have to come back to that. I'm sure we're going to get back to that story because there's something fascinating about it. I'd like to probe a little bit more, but go ahead.
Okay, well, if you want to do
No,
that
no, no.
now, or
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Go ahead and tell me
okay,
the steps of your life as you
right. But
journey into
so
getting to that point.
so eventually, after graduating from high school, I graduated my O levels and my A levels, and I worked. I think for a year, I worked at a bank, and for a few months, and then I worked at British American Insurance Company for a couple of years, and then I decided I wanted to live this. I wanted to see the world. I really wanted to see America. I'm ready to take the world by storm. And so I, at the time, yeah, and if I give you the date, you'll you'll know my age. But at the time, we had a policy in Jamaica where if you left Jamaica, you could only take $50 with you.
Really?
And I
I
can tell
assume
you the year.
$50 back then were maybe quite a bit of money as opposed to what
No,
it is. No?
no, because I was traveling to New York, and I said it's going to cost me more to than $50 to get from the airport if I take a cab to where I was going.
Okay, okay, all right.
And I wanted to go to shop.
Okay,
Okay, because
okay.
at that time I was into clothes, I was into looking good, I was into looking fabulous.
All
You know,
right.
if you come to America, you better have a little money to get at least, a few nice looking shoes and and of course it was cold. Oh my goodness, cost of getting a winter coat, $50.
Okay, all right. That
But
wouldn't work at all.
I was stunned as to how a government can tell me I can only travel with $50. That really, really stunned me. And it was at the insistence of the IMF. And I'm saying, how do you have a foreign office tell me I can only travel with $50? And that began my career in political science. I had to
Wow.
get to the bottom of this. I had to figure this out.
So
This was
you were driven to finding the ins and outs of how
because I
under
didn't
heaven
have
could
money
this
to
be
shop.
possible?
So God used those desires for clothes and shoes and looking pretty to drive me into a field that would transform my life.
So while you were at high school,
Mhm,
so you're talking about, so from your friends' uncles were coming and
mhm,
going,
mhm.
you've actually concluded in your mind that's the direction you want your life to go.
I didn't. It just sounded good. And
Okay, okay,
somehow I unconsciously ended up in the same place. I didn't remember anything about that in the years subsequent to that.
really.
Nothing at all. Never thought about it. Never. At the time, it was an exciting experience. But now I'm of the conclusion that some things can be placed in your thoughts unconsciously. We have to be careful what we put in our minds, because we can put good things in our minds, we can put bad things in our minds that turn out affecting our destiny. We have to be very, very careful the things that we that we think about, the things that really impress us, because we can either end up in a good place or a bad. So somehow I ended up in the exact place where I kept asking God, God, I wish I were there. I wish that could, excuse me, that could be my lifestyle. I wish that would have been my world, and it ended up being that.
What if I
Mm,
assume now
mm.
that fascination was brought to you by God's design, because he knew where your future was going to
Absolutely,
go, and he just kind of
absolutely.
he create this moment of
Mm,
fascination and
mm,
euphoria, and
mm.
and then say, I am sowing the seed now, but I'm gonna let it grow when my hour comes.
And I'm also of the impression right now that even my mother's behavior was designed to push me to my destiny.
And
So
listen,
sometimes when bad things happen to us, we say it's the devil. And it could be the devil, but God can still
it
work
could
it
be.
for
It
good.
could be. Amen. Amen.
Yes.
I often say this to some of my guests,
Mm,
when the story warrants it, and I think
mm.
you're warranted, that one of these days God will show you the mystery of your history,
Exactly.
the mystery of
Absolutely.
your history, because those days it didn't make any sense, and we
Mhm.
look at, and I see that I could compare that to Joseph.
Exactly.
while his brothers deliberately wanted him dead. But at the end, he concluded, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for
Yeah,
good." So
exactly. Exactly.
if these things didn't happen, just like we're talking about, judge me by my scars, because my
Mhm.
scars determine who I am.
Exactly.
Without these scars,
Exactly.
I would never be who I am. So without your
Mhm.
mom, number
Mhm.
one, if your mom didn't do what she did, you wouldn't have
Mhm.
gone to
Exactly.
your friend's place to get acquainted with her uncles.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when you look back now, you can put the pieces together. But back then,
Exactly.
it was a nightmare.
Right.
All right.
Of
So
course, growing up, I didn't think that there was any good to come out of it. As a matter of fact, I was angry with just the treatment. I was angry and very very hateful of my mother. But God has now turned my heart because I can see, God. I could see God in it. I
how
could
did
see
how
God.
did how did how did you manage the relationship, and what was her reaction when you left the house to go by your friend? What was her reaction back then?
She put me out.
Oh, so you went there because she actually put you out
Uh-huh. Mhm.
because she thinks you victimized everybody.
Right, right, right.
So
And then
how
there were some other issues. I had some other medical issues, and she felt that a child gynecological issues, and she
mm,
felt that a child should never have gynecological issues unless she was engaging in adult activities.
wow.
And she was a Christian woman, and she didn't want any of that in her house. So
Okay.
that contributed to the whole picture. And so my entire life was based on these negative events that I had to overcome. So there's a lot of overcoming that had to take place, and still even now,
Still even now.
still
S-
even
So
now.
you have been fighting battles from those days.
Exactly,
Oh my
exactly.
God! And
Mhm.
still you're not finished fighting
Right,
yet.
right. I'm reminded, if I can just jump ahead a little bit, because I'm going to speak based on, as the Holy Spirit prompts me. But the Holy Spirit prompted me about something, just based on what you just said. At one point, I'm jumping over a dozen different crises,
Yeah,
but
we
at
we
one
we we'll
point,
maybe come back and pick them up at one
yes,
after
we'll
the
come back
yeah.
and
Okay.
pick them up. But this one is so I'm going to apply this to all that had occurred back there. Um, I had the Lord had called me to seminary, and I remembered while I was in New Rochelle, by the way, and I remember the day. Well, I'm not even going to tell you the day. I seminary was at night, and I remember coming home late one night, and there was a letter from a prophet. And this prophet, when I came home from seminary, I came home late and I was tired, and I would turn on the radio, and there was this prophet who was always ministering, and I enjoyed him. He played the music. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That was one of my favorite. And I sent him a donation,
Hmm.
and then he sent me back a letter. And I came home late from seminary that night, and I said, I'm too tired. I can't read any letters, and I'm too tired. But the next morning, because I decided to give up everything and go to seminary full time, and I wanted to go talk. I had an appointment the morning to go talk about getting support or scholarship or something.
Hmm.
And so I'm on my way to the appointment, and the Holy Spirit said, "Go back and read that prophet's letter." And I went back, opened the letter, and read it. And the letter said, "All my life, the devil has targeted me for destruction." It says, "Today, the devil has planned for your destruction."
Wow.
And I read it, and I just burst out crying, and I fell to my knees, and I cried, and I cried, and I couldn't stop crying. And I said, you know what? I need that money from the seminar. I need to get up and go about my business. So I got up, and the Holy Spirit would not let me get up. I dropped back on my knees and I kept crying. And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. I said, I need to go. I can't
Wow.
afford to miss my appointment. I need that money from the scholarship that I'm going to apply for. I got up again, and the Holy Spirit had me back down on my knees. And
Really?
I cried and cried and cried and cried. Finally, when I mean, it was like over an hour that I was crying, more than an hour. I finally got up to leave. And as I'm running, I said, boy, I know I'm going to miss the appointment. I hope they'll still take me. And I'm running out, and somebody said, where are you going? Haven't you heard what happened? 9/11.
Oh, wow.
The towers fell down. I would have been in that train
Oh, my goodness.
had I not
Wow.
stopped and read the
So
letter
that
and
so that
had
was actually on 9/11.
it. Yes, I would have been in the train when, if I had left on time, when the towers came down and there was a train that it fell on.
Oh, my
I would have
goodness.
been on that train.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
And so I keep saying to people, God has spared me so many times. Is
Wow.
there anything that I would not do for my God?
Wow.
So those are some of the experiences that made me realize that the devil is certainly challenged by my existence.
Whew.
And I know the devil has tried to take me out so many times,
You
but I
can't.
thank God that each time he
Yeah.
protects me. I cannot leave this earth until God says, I'm ready for you to come home. So there
Amen.
is nothing that I fear. I am fearless at this moment, but let me give you an opportunity. It's your
God
show.
bless you. God bless you. I mean, already that's a mouthful. I mean, already
Mhm,
that's a mouthful because just that experience on 9/11 is one. I remember where I was at 9/11 when the first tower fell. I remember where I was, what I was doing when the second one fell. So I'm looking at it like has it happened now. I've watched it, and just to it's incredible. It's incredible to hear that story, that had not God
mhm.
forced you to
Forced
stay
me.
there a little bit longer,
Mhm,
stay a little longer,
mhm,
Judith, stay here
mhm,
longer, Judith. Because
mhm,
if you go now, that money that you think you were gonna get,
mhm.
you wouldn't get it, right?
Yep.
As a matter of fact, you wouldn't be around maybe to even be a blessing. And so, yes, thank God the devil didn't kill the seed.
Yes.
He would have killed it if he could, but he has the right to make attempts.
Mhm,
Again, there are stories that fit. I'm just writing on in my in the extension of my "Don't Judge Me by My Scars," and I've been thinking about Job, and his story, and how it unfolded. And sometimes God allows some things for His glory. Some scars are for God's glory. All right, my friend, I'm talking to Dr. Judith Duncker, and we are just breaking into her story. I invite you to hit your share button wherever you're watching from. Hit your share button, tag a few people, invite them to join us because we're just getting started with her story, a fascinating one. I want to piggyback a little bit, on the story with your mom, the house, and your father. How did the relationship go with your father? What happened? How did that unfold back then?
mhm. I kind of wanted to shut that down
You
until
wanted to?
later on.
Okay, all right, okay.
But let me say this. After I received that package, I did not hear from him again for another 40 years.
For another what?
40. And that's another miracle. So later on, when we
Okay, okay,
when that's another miracle,
okay.
when we move on.
Oh,
But
Lord of mercy.
suffice it to say, he was totally gone from my life, and then he reappeared towards the end of his life. And that's another miracle, which I will relate a lot later down the road.
Oh Lord of mercy! All right, my friend, I'm talking to Doctor Judith Duncker. She's an amazing woman. Her accomplishment in life is beyond one's imagination. I don't know how one person can accomplish all that she has accomplished. I don't know one person can be involved in all the things that she's involved in. Time would fail me to even begin to look and pinpoint the things that I see in her bio. Oh my God! Okay, so where did your life go now, young lady? Become a young lady. You did come to America when you were young. Did you didn't come when you were young?
No, after high school.
Yeah, I mean, I consider after high school still young, not childhood but young. Okay, so what was the time you leave Jamaica to come to America, and that was a $50 time, right? When you couldn't travel with that. Did
Yeah.
you come on that $50, or did you have
Yeah,
other
I did.
plans?
Yeah, I
You
did.
came on the $50.
Right.
Okay, so where did your life go when you got here?
Okay, let me so initially when I came, I decided I wasn't going back, um, because I really wanted to get into college and begin to study, and become a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, attended Rutgers, did political science, of course, because of, somehow, as I said, I don't know why I chose that field other than the fact that God had planted that desire in my heart. Then I went on, did a master's at Fordham in New York, in international political economy and development. It's called an IPED degree, because I felt like God was calling me to develop leadership, political leadership, people who can run their countries, people who are able to make decisions. Because again, as I said, I was, just taken aback by the financial crises that Jamaica was facing, and I really wanted to know more. So I did that, but I want to go. Then, of course, I started having children. I had 4 kids. Stayed home, raised kids in between, going back. I stayed home, raised kids, go out, more education, back and forth. So much of my life was raising kids, raising family, and studying. But I wanted to, when I decided to do my doctoral degree, I wanted to continue in this vein. I wanted to continue in international development, political economy field. And of course, I didn't have any money to pursue it. So I applied for a scholarship. And the scholarship I got it. And it was given, and this is phenomenal. Um, I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Ralph Bunche. A lot of people have not.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Bunche was a professor. He was a African American professor at Harvard. He did his dissertation on decolonization. He helped to liberate a lot of African countries. He was hired by the State Department and, at the time, by the President of the United States. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first African Americans to be considered, to be worthy of being the president of the United States. And he was being encouraged to run for presidency. But then he decided to work with the United Nations to help poor nations. He negotiated the first treaty between the Palestinians and Israel, for which he won a Nobel Prize. He was the first African American to win a Nobel Prize.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to donate the prize money for an African American to enter the field of international relations. That money was awarded to me.
Come on.
And so that was how I was able to afford my doctoral education.
Are you
And it
kidding me?
also it also allowed me to travel, because one of the reasons you don't have a lot of black people at high levels in diplomacy and foreign policies, because um, they don't have the money to be traveling all over the place, and people are not funding them. This allowed me to travel. I traveled all over the world, attending meetings at the United Nations, in Geneva, in New York, diplomatic meetings all over the place.
I want to get back. I want to get back to the build up. I want to get back to the build up. Where, how, and where did that door open? I mean, that is
I
what's
don't
the
know. Only
what's the
God.
connectivity? What is the connectivity? No connectivity.
None whatsoever. I applied for it. I can only say God did it. That's my only explanation. God did it.
All
Now I
right,
have to say,
we're gonna take that. We're gonna take
yeah,
that.
but there's just one little piece. Again, as I said, God has been just just putting up the pieces together. Just before COVID, I had an opportunity to go to Israel on a delegation from New York, to go look at. There was some conflict there, to go to the Israeli side, to go to the Palestinian side. And while on the tour bus, the tour driver, took us to the place where that treaty was signed. This was like 5 years ago. Took us to the place where that treaty was signed, out of which I got my money to go get my doctorate. I sat there and I said, now look at God. Not only did He give me the money, but He showed me. He showed me the, the place and the circumstances that generated that funds, which He gave me. God has resources all over. We don't know where money will come from,
Oh
but
my
God
God.
can bring it to us from a variety of sources, to do what God has called us to do. I
I
was amazed when I sat there in the, but of course I had to give a testimony, even though these weren't Christians. I had to say, guys, as a result of that spot and that treaty that was signed, I am here on that bus today because it made me get my doctorate, get my get all the credentials that I need to be on that tour. Little did I know that I was going to end up touching that spot where it all began. And God wanted me to see where the spot that generated the money that touched my life. So
so
that was
I'm thinking, and I'm thinking that I'm thinking that I'm journeying with you in a dream. I'm thinking
Mhm,
that I'm journeying with you in a dream,
mhm,
because it almost doesn't make any sense to me. It almost
mhm,
doesn't make any, and again, when God does things, it normally don't make sense,
mhm.
because the natural man cannot figure out the things of God,
Exactly.
because you couldn't craft this by yourself,
Mhm.
because until now you still don't know how,
I don't know how.
where the connectivity.
Mhm.
I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed at that.
No, I just applied for it and got it. But again, as I said, the Lord gave me the desire to pursue this line of studies. And there was the money available because at the time Ralph Bunche had passed away, and his family has he left it in his will for his family to donate it to an African American.
Wow.
I just happened to have been the only one there at the time.
Well, maybe you were, but you were strategically positioned for that
Exactly.
one. Oh
Mhm.
my goodness, you had to be positioned. And now we comes back to what we were talking about. Oh,
Mhm.
that lesson that God, that you thought it was just your fascination. Maybe it
Mhm.
was God sowing the seed, and because
Mhm.
He had future plans down the road that you would not
Mhm.
even imagine. And now
Mhm.
He allowed those pieces to fall in place and say,
Mhm.
here is your dream becoming
Mhm.
reality.
Mhm.
Wow.
And now that you see, as I'm talking to you, God is just showing me things. God is still continuing to put pieces together. And I never saw this connection until now. As a result of all these things, God has given me a burden for souls. in that
Hmm.
region.
Okay. Okay.
Burden for souls in the 1040. Now I'm making that connection. Is as a result of what happened in that area that got me even remotely interested in the politics of that area and the development of that area. And now God has taken me from that to the souls of the people in that area.
Wow. Wow.
So
I
God has a strategic plan. If He had called me and said, "I need you to go over to that place and save those folks," I would say, "Not me, Lord."
Not me.
But
You would say
now that
like
he has developed these connections, and out of that connection comes that love for that region, and so I'm burdened for souls in that region, and that's where God has called me to pray for the salvation of those in that area.
God bless you, and I hope it goes well for you, that your testimony has no end. My friends, I saw some of our friends, our roundtable friends, popping on here. Some of our special people, they're on here, coming on tonight. Welcome to our friends without naming their names. Good to see the friends of roundtable coming on. We
Mhm.
recognize you, and if you want to identify yourself, you can talk to Dr. Duncker. You can ask her a question later on. If you're listening and you're fascinated with what's going on, you can actually type a question, and we can ask Dr. Duncker to respond to it. But it's a good time for you to hit your share button, because her story is fascinating. We heard the glorious things that God has done from her childhood days. And uh, until you have these conversations, you can't know what is in somebody's background. How did their lives unfold? The ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. It's incredible how God worked on your behalf from the childhood days until this day. And so we talked about you coming to America, and then you tell me about you having children. But we never hear about the story about who gave you those children. You run into this guy or guy, whoever it is that gave you those. Where did you run into that person, and how, what was happening in your life that time when you run into that person?
I told you I worked at British American in Jamaica after
Okay.
I left high school, and that's where I met my former husband.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then when I decided that I wanted to come to America, and then he decided right after we came to America and we got married, and I stayed.
Okay, so you both came here, and okay.
Yes, but I came first, and then he
Okay.
came afterwards, and
Okay.
then I started having children right away, and so I had 4 kids, and I was taking care of them and all of that.
Hmm.
So and that ended in quite a horrendous situation. Hello, Marcia. And I just it has it really devastated me. The situation that I faced. Hi, Chaplain Sandy. And
And everybody is popping up here,
Reverend
right?
Barnett. Oh, Reverend Barnett.
Is
God
in the
bless
house.
you,
Is in
Reverend
the house. Is
Barnett.
in the house. Is in the house. Is in the house.
Mhm,
Welcome to
mhm,
our friends and
mhm.
co-workers and family, fellow laborers. I'm talking to
Amen.
Dr. Judith Duncker, my friends. You have to you need to share, hit your share button, and let's hear a story. And if you missed the beginning of it, you got to come
Hi,
back when
Lady
we're finished.
Dorothy.
You got
Oh,
to
Reverend Ming.
you got to
God
come back
bless
when
you.
we're
Hi,
finished and
Dorothy.
listen the rest of it. All right. Okay. All
Chaplain
right.
Sandy, God bless you.
All right. All right. All right. So tell us if you want to share something about, because I heard you shared it on in another setting, and some of those stories that I heard are the reasons for me wanting to talk to you, because I said those stories are stories that can help others who are in situations in their lives, that you can out of the darkness or the dark places of your life, you can actually rise to something exceptional. And so whatever you want to share with us, then you can share with us. I don't want to like like
Mhm.
Samson said, if you didn't plow my effer, you wouldn't know you didn't know where my strength lies. So, so tell us if you want to give us something about the high moments and low moments. Cause we're gonna come back to the ministry, ministry traveling and all of that things, all those things. They have highs and lows, good times, bad times. So we hear about some of the glamour. What are some of the lows, if you want to share the lows in your life?
Okay, let me say hi to Zelda, Sister Zelda first. Hi, Sister Zelda. Um, I I wanted to share two things. One has to do with the divorce. I remember it was one of those situations where, of course, I was a very, very active member of my church, and so was my ex-husband. We At the time we attended Brethren Church, and he was one of the main speakers. So of course, I didn't expect whatever happened, because hey, you're preaching in a church every Sunday, whatever. Um, but what happened was a I discovered kind of like a double life, and exposed it to the church. First of all, the church didn't believe me because I'm very outspoken and loud, of course, so I have to be the problem. And he was nice and quiet and preached every Sunday, so he is definitely not the program. It had to
Can be him.
can't be him. It had to be me. So when I discovered the double life, I was like, you want to see what this lovely person is doing. So of course he was sort of sat down from the church, and he got very upset. So he attacked me, and then called the police and said I attacked him.
Really?
Now the police in the town, by the way, we lived in an all white town, and my ex-husband is German American, so he doesn't look
Okay.
like me. I'm
Okay.
sorry, not
Okay.
German American, German Jamaican. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So he
Okay.
didn't quite look. Hi, Val. So he doesn't quite look at like me. But we were living in a town where people of color were harassed. There were it's almost an all-white town. People of color were constantly harassed,
Hmm.
and I had made up my mind that it was going to stop, and I was going to put a stop to it. So I filed a complaint with the state of New Jersey, and they sent in whatever people to investigate, and they felt that the police, there are too many instances of against people of color, and they took action. So these were the people he called and told them that I had attacked me because they wanted me out of the town so bad.
Hmm.
So they arrested me, the
So
police
they
officer.
wanted you out of the town.
Yeah, 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 because I was trouble.
Really?
So when I reported my ex to the church because of his, behavior, I said he can't be preaching from the pulpit and be doing all of this. That's what happened. An incident happened at home where he and my daughter who wanted to be, out there living her life at 12, and I decided, oh no, you don't. So they both decided to tell the police that I attacked them both. So the police came, arrested me, and while I was locked up, he
Wow.
filed for a permanent restraining order. The police testified that I tried to kill him, I tried to kill them. And I was brought before the court. The judge said I could confess and take 6 months, or
Hmm.
not confess and get 6 years in jail.
Wow.
And of course, I did not have money because at the time, my ex husband and I had one bank account. We never had two separate accounts. So he sort of shifted everything into his own account. I had no money to get an attorney. So I finally was able to get an attorney. And she went before the court and told the judge that I was confessing to assault with a knife. And I remember stating, went out, had deliberations. I told her, but I'm not confessing. She said, okay, she's gonna handle it. She's gonna do the best she can. And she went back in the court and told the judge I had confessed. And I got up and I said to the judge, I don't know where I got that boldness from. Even today,
Wow.
when I think about the boldness, I said, Your Honor, this woman, throw this woman out of the court because I am not confessing.
And she was
And I
she was white. She
remember,
was white too. I'm
no, no,
assuming,
no,
right?
it's an African
Oh,
American.
she wasn't white.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess she saw the case as hopeless. I had my
Mm.
ex-husband, I had my child, and I had four police officers confessing that I
Wow.
came at
Wow.
them, tried to
Mm.
kill them. And so I said, Your Honor, I don't care if there are 100 officers testifying against me. I am not confessing to a crime because a crime did not take place on my behalf.
Wow.
And the judge said, okay, he's going to dismiss, but not dismiss, he's going to postpone the case for 2 weeks. And I had to get another attorney because I'd already paid this woman from money I had collected and I had no more money.
Wow.
And I was staying with friends because I couldn't go back to my house. And I said, Lord, what do I do now?
Mm,
This is
mm,
a
mm.
hopeless situation. The choices are 6 months in jail if I confess, or 6 years if I don't confess.
With
I
a
said,
with a record behind that too.
exactly. I said, Lord, what do I do? Immediately I got a phone call. It was from my father.
Oh Lord
After
have mercy.
40 years,
Ah, come on, come on.
after 40 years.
Oh, come on. These can be real. These can be real stories that we're talking about here.
And he was in a nursing home
Uh oh.
in Brooklyn,
Oh wow.
and he was broke
Uh oh.
nonetheless.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
And the social worker said they did a search. They found me. He knew he had heard he had a daughter. His daughter was in New Jersey. They put out a search. They found me, and they wanted me to come and take care of my father.
Uh oh.
Now I am facing jail. And somebody I hadn't heard for 40 years
40 years. My own father.
is
40
asking
years.
me to come and take care of him. But I'm telling you, that weekend prior to this whole situation, I had gone to church when I got let out of jail. I went to church with my friend because I couldn't go back to my old church because he had put up a restraining order, even though they threw him out, but I couldn't go back there. So I
Wow.
went to church with my friend, and the pastor preached a sermon on honoring your father and your mother.
Oh Lord have
Doesn't
mercy.
matter if they're good to you, don't matter if they deserve it. Honor them because God says to honor them.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I guess I'm going to have to go over there. And so I actually went over to the nursing home. I met my dad, and I kind of acted like nothing happened. Hi, Dad, how are you? Hugged them, whatever. I didn't want to make
Trying to impress the staff, right?
trying to impress everybody, including his friends, because all his friends were
Okay,
looking.
okay, okay, all right.
And whatever, hi, how are you? Ooh, and it was, I played it well. I played it off very, very well. And then the social worker called me in, and she says, well, we need to know his history. They didn't know a lot about his history. And she says, can you tell us when was the last time this, when was the last time he did? And every question she asked me, I said, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
Mm-mm.
She said, how do you have a father and don't know any of
Don't
this?
know. Don't know
And
anything.
then I said, I have to confess, I have not heard from him in almost 40 years. And she said, what? And you came out here? I said, yes, I had to, because God is honored by my coming. And God has instructed me to honor him. And I'm here to honor him.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, he was so happy. He just dragged me around there, introducing me to everybody in the nursing home. My daughter is here. My daughter is here. And
Oh
he was
boy.
so happy. Well, I have to tell you, and an unbelievable story for me. For those 40 years, my dad worked as a night watchman in the very building I did my doctoral degree.
Oh Lord of
I'm
mercy.
leaving at a certain time, he's coming in.
Are you
We
kidding me?
never, ever crossed, our path never crossed.
So you didn't know where he was, he didn't know where you were.
Never knew what I was, never knew where I was.
But you knew him enough that if you saw him, you would have
Yeah, he
known
looked the
that it was him.
same. He looked the
Oh
same.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, just a little
That is
older.
amazing.
But he had got been injured on the
Oh
job, and they fired him, and he sued. And
wow.
that case was held up for 10 years, back
Oh
and
dear
forth,
God
back
of
and forth,
mercy.
back and forth. The weekend I went to actually take care of him, the judge decided to rule in his favor.
You know what? I'm gonna have to take a break from your story because I'm, I'm
And I
gonna have to
got
take a
that
break from your
money
story.
I have to, let me just finish the
I,
story.
I'm I'm just I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This is too incredible. Just too incredible.
He was able to win a settlement, and he turned it over to me. I
Oh
got
dear
the
Father
best
in heaven.
attorney in New Jersey that got me off the criminal case.
I need a drink of water. No,
I
I
just
really.
want to let people know why I serve God, why I serve God tirelessly. There is nothing I will not do for my God, because
you
he has come through some incredible situations for me.
you couldn't make up this.
I couldn't make it up. But I have to tell you,
Are you sure this is not just imagination?
I have to tell you, after he turned the money over to me, they threw him out of the nursing home because
Oh
he
Lord.
was on whatever Medicaid.
Okay,
And
okay.
so when they heard that he had gotten money, they
Settlement
said
now,
they
yeah.
had to turn it over. But he said no, his daughter needs it, so he turned it over to me. So they threw him out. So I had to go find a place for him to live. And
Oh
his
my
old
God.
apartment in Brooklyn, where he used to live, was open. So I took him back. I had to furnish it because everything was already moved. I had to furnish his own apartment, etc. But anyway, as it turned out, shortly after that, within a month, it turned out that he had an aneurysm
Hmm.
in his heart.
Oh, oh.
And apparently has had it for a while, and they told him he needed surgery, and he decided he would not have surgery. So when I took him to have a visit with the hospital with his doctor, they told me they found the aneurysm, and they said he had to be admitted immediately. Which at the time I had gotten power of attorney, and he didn't want to go, but I forced them to undertake the surgery, and he died. He died on the.
Listen, my
Mm,
friends, if you're just joining, this is one of the most incredible
mm,
sequence. I'm gonna put it as a sequence of things that I've heard talking to anybody, and it almost makes no sense. It almost makes no sense. If you missed it, you're gonna have to go back to listen to this story if you're just joining to hear this story from the beginning. So I'm just gonna recap this little piece of it. I'm going to recap this little piece of it. You saw, and I'm just she's sincere father of almost 40 years, beautiful set of wonderful things he sent for her, and then she lost him from that. Her life unfolded. I'm coming back to New Jersey now with this case of being on restraining order or whatever, this case that were against you, that you're supposed to plead to get 6 months or not plea, and it might be 6 years. You got a lawyer who wanted you to plea because she didn't see anything hopeful in in your case. She blew it. You need another lawyer, and you had no money. And right in that moment, your father that you have not seen for call it 40 years, you got a call that he that he was somewhere that you could come and see him, but then he was sick
In a nursing
in a
home in
nursing home
Brooklyn.
and broke. But in the midst of that, he had a case because he got injured. And right on the nick of that time,
After 10 years.
after 10 years, on the nick of that time when you met him, the judge decided to come to a conclusion on the case, and he decided to turn over the returns to you. And that helped you out of your case of no money and no plea, get a good lawyer to get you free, and then to take care of him. I couldn't make that up. I couldn't make that up. Oh my goodness. Okay, oh my goodness. I'm talking to Dr. Judith Duncker, and her story already blows my mind. And I've seen the action coming up on the screen so far that people just can't believe that what they are hearing. Can't believe what they are hearing. All right. What else? How did the rest? Okay, so now with your husband, the story and the case, what was his response to you getting off, and where did life go after that for you?
Oh, he filed for divorce. The court gave him the children, gave him the house, gave him my car, gave him all my money. He went there. He told the judge he had never seen me. He just happened to have these four children. And
Really?
the judge told him throw me out on the street, which is what he did. So I became homeless overnight.
What?
hmm And that's how I ended up, by the way, at uh, Bishop Beckford's church. I'm just finding out that I was at his church. I ended up at his church. I just found that out 2 weeks that he's the pastor of the church where I ended up.
Okay, so she was
Another
not at
part
she
of the
was at she
puzzle
was
that
at
God is
my church, right?
exposing.
She was at the church where I know pastor, because I wish I had known her then. So I'm just finding out that, like, last week or so,
Right.
or 2 weeks ago, that she used to
Mhm.
be a member of the church and I now pastor. So small world. I never met her there, but I know I wish that she was there. It would have been good to have her there, but God knows all things. All right, so you now you're homeless. Your life
Mhm.
is unfolding, pages are turning, and things are going up and down. How did you deal with that? What kind of conversation you had with God then in those moments?
I
How
was
did?
ready to leave the faith. I said, and by the way, all of this happened when God called me to the ministry.
Mm,
And so I am thinking I'm hot stuff now.
uh
God
oh.
thinks I'm hot enough to be a pastor.
Uh oh.
I'm holy upon holy. And then all of this happened. And I was angry with God.
I can
I
imagine.
said, God, is this how you treat your pastors? I don't want to be a pastor in your church. And so I was angry. I have to tell you, I can't fake it. I was
And
angry.
listen, you don't have to fake it, because God understands that we are
Mhm,
human and we have these
mhm,
moments in our lives, and
mhm,
we don't have answers to these questions, so we can only
mhm,
see the human struggle and suffering and wonder
mhm,
if God
mhm,
is really there. What is He doing? Is he
mhm,
like the the God of the sons of widows that Elijah wanted them to call on their God, Baal, and where is
mhm,
he
mhm.
sleeping or what? So what happened then? Now you're homeless. Your world turned upside down. Where did Judith
Right.
go?
So I stayed temporarily with a couple of friends of mine, and of course, I went to church with one of my friends. And of course, at that time, I was at the Brethren Church, and I couldn't figure it out. God is calling me to the ministry in a church where women can be pastors and can speak.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
so, so, and plus, of course, I had my children that I had to take care of, and I'm wondering, how am I going to do all of this? Then all of this happened suddenly. All of this happened, and I end up being out of my house, being my ex-husband, left me my children, took away my children, took everything away. And
Wow.
so I decided to go to church with a friend of mine, and she attended a Pentecostal church, and that was my first time attending a Pentecostal church. And I walked in, and the while the service was going on, the pastor started to prophesy. Now, this was my very first experience hearing the prophetic ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And he pointed to me and he said, "The Lord saw everything that you experienced. He saw all that you lost. He saw your children being taken away. And the
Wow.
Lord said, I am with you. I will take care of it." And it was just a long prophecy. And he kept saying, and God heard the cries, the cries of your heart in the night season. And that man was quoting everything I was saying to God.
So
And I'm like, oh,
In Jamaican lingua, we said, "Did you bawl? Did you bawl, or what did
oh
you do?"
yes. And I was amazed. I was actually amazed. And I think that was what made me decide not to leave God, because
Whew.
here I am saying, "Oh my God, he's telling me that he knows what I'm going through. He's telling me that he still loves me. He's telling me that everything will be well."
So
And so
it took a while to answer your questions when you were thrown out. It took a while to answer, but
quite a while.
but it took a while to answer.
I want
Uh,
everything
and
immediately.
I said, don't tarry, wait for it, right? Don't tarry, wait for it. We're like the microwave response, like, come on, Lord.
Mm,
But God is kind of letting it marinate, because you're gonna pile it
mm,
on one time. You're gonna give you
mhm.
all the answers here and now if you could wait on it.
Yes. So from there, it was right after that that I moved to New Rochelle to stay with another friend of mine, and then I ended up at your church. And then slowly things started, falling back in place, because again, as I said, I had taken total leave from working to take care of my children. So
Wow.
now I'm in no state of mind to go get back, having lost everything. And so I was just going around in circles, just trying to get myself settled. And that's when I ended up taking this job where I'm still working right now at Lehman College as a professor, and still doing a lot of international stuff, both professionally and non-professionally. But if you will permit me, there's that one story. I see one of my best students, Dorothy, is in the room. One of my best students,
All right, all
loves the
right.
Lord, Dorothy.
Welcome, Dorothy. Good to have you joining us, and let's talk with the doc.
Right. I have to, if I could share the one experience that blew my mind. I'm telling you all these things, but there's one experience that blew my mind more than anything else that I've said.
So
And
this is related to the same story, or it's
no,
another? Is there
no,
another
another
story?
story.
All
But
right.
if
So
but I
we're gonna come back, and
okay,
then you share the story. We're gonna make you get a
okay.
drink of water. I am talking to Dr. Judith Duncker, my friends. I
Oh
encourage you.
my
Oh
goodness.
yes, I know. She
You
graduated from
graduated
Lehman.
from
Here you go.
Lehman,
Here you go. Here you go.
Reverend Barnett.
The world is getting
Was that while
smaller,
I
right?
was there?
They're really getting smaller. When we come back, I'm gonna continue the conversation with Dr. Judith Duncker. Hit your share button. Tell your friends about it. This is one of the most incredible stories that I have ever heard. When we come back, we will continue talking to Dr. Duncker. God bless you, my friends. Stay tuned. Did I do that? Oh, again, I got the wrong thing. I'm sorry about that.
every Wednesday. And Twitter.
All right, all right. So I did change my background. I'm sorry about it. I gotta mess my background up. Let's get that out and fix that. Let's see where we have here. Okay. All right, all right. I think we're back in business. Okay, there we go. I was doing the wrong thing. All right, my friends. So I am talking to Dr. Duncker. I am fascinated with her story, and so are many of those who are listening tonight. I thank you for joining me. Okay, Dr. Duncker, now that the floor is open back to you, tell us what's now that is most impressed on your mind.
I just wanted to acknowledge all the Lehman people in the audience,
Lehman is in the
and even
house.
our sister Maxwell, who lives close to Lehman. Welcome, welcome, Lehman, my people. Um, yes, I just wanted to just put out some of the stories, and then we can go back and you can ask questions based on. Welcome, Dr. Ben. um, Glad that you're here. I Yes, just one other, well, two other stories that
The
I
floor is
wanted.
yours. The floor is yours. Now you get a break. Now you
And
can
then
tell us.
I'll allow the audience to ask questions. Well, three other stories. I don't know, but the story that really has impacted my faith. I know
Okay.
all of these other things have, but the one situation that really, really, really impacted my faith is my airplane story. And people keep asking me to tell the airplane story. So I don't know if you've heard that before. My
I've never
airplane.
heard about the airplane story.
Okay.
I'm new to it. I'm new to all of your story.
Okay. I've shared that on the afterglow, so I don't know. But
Okay,
people
I
keep
didn't get
asking
that
me
one.
to repeat this story, so I will do that just so that we don't run out of time. I had to speak at a meeting in Budapest. This was a few years ago, and again, coming from that my early childhood experience about wanting to be in Europe or whatever, whenever I go in that area, I like to take the train
Hmm.
because I like to see all the scenery. I like to see all the beautiful buildings. I like to just hi, Pastor Roper. I just like the European, the mountains, the Alps, and all of that, and I just love the Swiss chalets and all of that. So I always, when I had to travel in that area, I always just go to find an airport and then take the train to my destination. So I had to speak at a conference in Budapest. So I took a plane to Paris, and then I got on the train from Paris to Budapest. So now I was supposed to have been compensated in my account for the trip, but it turned out that they gave me a check instead, which means that I didn't have a lot of cash to work with. I thought they were going to give me in cash, but they gave me a check, so couldn't cash checks or spend as much as I wanted to. On my way back, I said, "Okay, I've got to catch the train back in Paris to get to New York." On the train, when we crossed over into Austria, a young man laid on the tracks and committed suicide.
Uh oh.
And according to the laws in Austria, it was dark. It was maybe around maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. According to the laws of the land, the train cannot move until all the pieces are picked up. And they had
It's a crime scene.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
So we had to stay overnight on the
Oh
train
my goodness.
until the next morning. As a result of that, next morning they came, they cleared up, they cleared us to go on. By the time I got to Paris, I missed my flight.
Oh wow.
And it was the first day of summer in Paris. I think it was the end of, what's it, the end, or it was in June. It was sometime in June. I think it was sort of like the middle of June. And when I got to Paris, they said the next flight out is in September. And there were at summer, everybody wants to travel, and
Oh, so you couldn't get on a flight?
that's exactly what they were saying.
Oh wow, that's not making
And
sense.
there were 250 people waiting ahead of me. So even if somebody canceled their whatever, so I
June,
said,
July, August, September.
yes, yes, yes. And I was about to start a position at in the summer at Princeton. I needed to get back like the next day
Oh
to
my
start this
good
job.
Lord.
And I said, not a problem. I know my God. My God will
Uh-oh.
always
All
come
right. All right. All
through.
right. All right. All right.
Not a problem. But I was tired. I was hungry because I was traveling all day the day before. I stayed overnight. I'm sitting there. I just want to get home. So I said the first plane that was leaving that day, I said, God, I'm going to be on that plane. Thank you,
Really?
Jesus. Lord, I know how
Wow.
much you love me, Lord. And I don't have any money because I didn't get the money in cash. I had it in a check. So I can't even say, let me stay over. I can't even, I don't think I had money to buy food, much less. The first plane left, second plane left, third plane left, fourth. And I'm telling you, I counted, and nobody was canceling. So it was the constant 250 people still waiting ahead of me
Wow.
until midnight. Midnight, the last plane was ready to leave. And I said, Lord, you are not going to let me
It,
sleep
it's
here
it's
another
now
night.
it's now or never, right? It's
It's
now or
now or
never.
never. I said, God, you love me too much. Let me remind you, Lord, you love me too much to let me stay another night hungry in this airport. And I don't have any money to stay at a hotel, not at those prices in Paris. And I saw that plane fill up. Next thing I know, they shut the door. And I was not on that plane. And I said, God, I
This
don't
can't
care
be
what
real.
I see. I'm going to be on that plane.
Wow.
And I saw the plane backed out, turned around, turned around, took off. I
Really?
said, God, you are not leaving me here. I am getting on that plane.
Come on.
And I saw that plane take off. And everybody, when they shut the door, but when they, before the plane took off, everybody left. Everybody went home because at this point there was nobody getting on that plane. All the 200 and whatever people who were sitting there waiting, they all left. I was the only one in that airport. I got down on my knees. I said, God, you cannot leave me here, God. I am believing you, God. You will not leave me here. I don't care what my eyes see. Father, that plane is going to turn around and come right back for me. And I sat there. I said, God, and by this time I'm crying now. I said, God, you cannot leave me here, Lord. You
So
cannot
no,
leave
no,
me.
no.
I,
It's a delusion, right? Okay, yes,
I
Lord.
said, Lord, that plane is coming back in the name of Jesus. It's going to turn back and it's going to taxi right here and it's going to pick me up and take me
Wow.
home. Now, I know I sounded like a crazy woman.
Yeah, that sounds like a crazy woman down in Spanish Town where robots run and not the plane go normally.
So at this point, I started crying. I said, God, please send it back now. Send it back.
Oh
God, I can't.
wow.
I can't stay another night here. You have to send that plane back. And I stood there on the floor looking up at the stars in the sky, in the ceiling. I said, God, I'm not moving because that plane is coming right back for me. And in a few seconds, I heard click, 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 click. High heels. People were running. Two women, they what do you call it? They work the desk.
Mm-hmm.
The attendants
Mm-hmm.
running back. Next thing I know, they started opening up the desk. They started turning on the instruments, whatever. It's like, they were rushing and they were
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
trying to get
Mm-hmm.
stuff together. And I looked up. That plane came back, taxied right back there, and opened the door. Someone had a heart attack.
Oh wow.
The plane turned back. They took the man off. And the pilot said, do you want to go home? What you waiting for? Get on the plane. And I got on that flight. The man was sitting in first class nonetheless. I got a first class flight back home.
You know what?
I tell you, I ate like I never eaten before. I ate like a dying woman.
Right now, listen to your story. I feel like I am dreaming. I feel like I am the one dreaming.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm not gonna say you pray heart attack on the man. You know,
I'm sure he went to the
I'm
hospital
not.
and he's well taken care
I'm
of. All I know is I prayed for my seat on the plane.
wow.
Now God
And
chose it.
and the only
Mhm,
way that plane would have come back, it had to be something dramatic like that.
mhm.
I mean, that is the
And
highest height of emergency.
but the 250 people went
So
home.
that's my other point because
Mhm.
they don't know there is no hope.
No
So
hope.
there is no hope. The final
Mhm,
flight is left, and
mhm,
so they have no chance. You are the only one,
mhm, mhm.
the only idiot we would call it back in Jamaica, the only idiot who
Exactly.
was still stay there, right? The only idiot
Mhm.
still staying there praying
Right.
to a God after a plane is gone. Now I
Mhm,
have no answer to that, but all I
mhm,
can say that was not of your doing.
mhm,
There was something bigger than what
mhm,
you were able to do.
mhm,
But again, when God is working His purpose out, He's gonna work it. However, He put it in you to have some little faith like a mustard seed
mhm,
that something enough would turn this flight around. That is just beyond one's imagination. I
mhm,
cannot even begin to comprehend
mhm,
your state of mind to be there praying even after the plane has left
mhm,
and still wait and hope that it come back. That's
mhm.
beyond me. That's beyond me. And then
Yes.
you get it at first class.
Mhm.
So were you praying? Were you praying? Thank you, Lord, for the man's heart attack. Are you saying, Lord, now that I get on the flight,
Thank
please heal his heart?
No, I was thanking him for the food. I was too hungry to think about the man or anything else because I've been there all day hungry. I just wanted the food, as
Oh
much food
my
as I could
good
get. I
Lord.
was hungry.
I am done it, me. I am with you. I am done. I am with you. I am with you with that. I say that I'm done. This is enough. This is enough. Okay, so that was one of three stories. This doesn't make
No,
any sense.
that's my faith story. That's the
That's your faith.
story that make me believe God for the impossible. And I always believe God. And so my as a result, much of what I do is based on believing God for the impossible. and
I wa-
watch him open impossible doors for my life. I have to. This is one other story that I wanted. It just came into my mind. It wasn't one of the three, but
Wow, so
um,
you have a lot of stories. Already, my friends.
yeah,
I am going to book Doctor Duncan to come back some other time because we there's so many stories that, and these are most fascinating stories that I've ever heard. And I tell you, I've heard a lot of stories, but we're gonna have to get her to come back to say continue on some of these fascinating, because that
mhm.
maybe helps some people to believe that God still works.
It still does. Yes.
Go ahead. The floor is
Okay.
yours.
Right. There's so many other stories, but I just wanted to mention that uh, for a long time I didn't share any of my stories. As a matter of fact, the reason why I have not shared had to do actually had to do with your church. I remember when I shared what happened with the court situation and all of that. There was I tested, gave the testimony, and there's a gentleman who got up in the church and he said, "You're a liar. You're making these things up. These things never happen in America." And that made me,
Can I put a pause on that when you
yes.
say it happened at my church? Let me just make you know, it's not my church. I wasn't the pastor there. Okay, it happened a decade or so before I came there. So I just want to put a qualifier, a waiver on that.
The church that you used to pass,
The church I pastor now,
before
you
you
used to attend before.
that you
Okay,
passed in
we
that.
just want to clear that up.
And
Okay.
and so for for a long time I refused to share much of my experiences because they're so unbelievable. People think you're making a story up.
Hmm.
And so it's only when I started going to the Zoom room and I started sharing that God has now been bringing things back to me that I experienced that I totally forgot, because there's so many things that I've experienced. And they just, they just sort of, you just sort of forget about them. So now God is beginning to bring things back. And I remembered, I just wanted to say, Reverend Dell in the Zoom room
Hmm.
recently, I think it was last week, prophesied that God wants me to write books about
Yeah.
them.
Yes, you did say that.
So
And see, Dr.
I'm,
Ming asking you
and
if you
someone
consider
just
that.
mentioned,
That's Dr. Ming asking if you consider putting those in a book.
right. So I'm beginning to record things as I remember, and even as we're talking now, um, uh, um, Deacon Ben, Dr. Ben. Yes, even now I'm jotting down notes, and I'm as I remember things that I am going to at some point. I'm ready to share the story, but you feel intimidated when you share these things and people say, "Oh, that's not true. That could never happen," and they start saying you're lying and whatever, and that silenced me for too long. So I believe that what God is doing right now, He's allowing me to open up and share these experiences with the hope that someone will be helped by my testimony, that my life will be a blessing. Dr. Fox, uh, she says, I have
Believe
a
me,
story to tell the nation. So I'm saying, thank
believe
you,
me.
Dr. Fox.
We're opening the door here, and you can always go back to this and glean from it and say some of the things I spoke about, and especially when you come the next time, you'll always have this on the record to go back and
Mhm.
get synopsis, little snippets from it. I'm talking to
Sister
Dr. Judith
Wallen.
Duncker. I'm talking to Dr.
Hello,
Judith
Sister
Duncker.
Wallen.
Yeah. Ah, my goodness! And her story is beyond one's imagination, and I'm believing her because I know her. I know her to a certain extent, and I believe the character that she possessed. So I'm taking what she said as true, even though it seems too incredible to believe for me. But I'm believing her. Go ahead. What else you want to say? What you got? One more time for one more story. One more of the story. Pick one of those
Um,
stories, and then we give a chance to see if anybody want to ask you any question.
okay. Which one do I want to share? The only other story that I wanted to share was well, it's not necessarily an upbeat or a good story. My son that passed away,
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
and he was, of course, the youngest child, and she'll wait to read your book. My youngest child, and he was taken away from me in the divorce. And so I was separated from him for a while, and I kept praying, and I've shared this also on in your the forum with you. But I one of the things I wanted to share was the fact that the day he passed, I was on my way to New York to go to work, and I'm standing waiting on a bus, and the I just started to cry. I just started to cry,
Mm-hmm.
and I started speaking in tongues, and I was wailing, and I was begging, and I was pleading and pleading, and I had no idea what was happening, why I was crying, why I was pleading, and I was crying out to the Lord and begging and begging and begging, and I had no idea why, and then tears were just rolling down, rolling down. And finally I stopped long enough to get on the bus, and I forgot about it. And later on that night, I'm coming home on the bus, but I decided to take a different route. Instead of going the way I normally go, I took a local route. And while I'm driving home, the driver stopped at a stoplight, and he's looking across the bridge. And across the bridge, there are cars, lots of cars, well, police cars, ambulance, and I could see the coroner's car.
Hmm.
And this was like midnight because I stayed at work late and I had a lot to do. I had a lot to finish. And so I had to catch the last bus home. So I was tired. And this bus driver stood there staring. And of course, I was upset because I was tired. I kept saying, why doesn't this man leave? Why is he sitting here? Why is he looking? And I said, I don't care what's going on over
So
there.
that wasn't where you were going. They weren't blocking you. You were supposed to be going somewhere else. You're going a different direction.
I was on the bus,
Right, you're on the bus, and the bus,
and
but the
he's at the
bus is not
traffic light.
okay. Okay.
And the traffic light is green, and he still stopping, wanting to know what was going on over there. And I want to get home because I was tired.
So you
And
had
he
this.
would not.
They have this rubber neck, as they call it. They're like rubber neck.
Yes,
So, yeah, okay.
yes, yeah. Well,
Okay.
I
All
mean, he
right.
was full stop. It wasn't even rubberneck. He was
Okay.
stopped. And
Okay.
he parked the bus looking at what was going on. And I'm like, It's late. Come on, driver. Let's go. Let's go." And he was not paying me any attention. He was looking. That's where my son had passed. My
Oh
son.
wow.
My son,
Wow.
that coroner, they found him, dead. They said it was a skateboard accident, and the coroners were there, and I had no idea that that
So
was my
so
son.
your son was driving or you was skating?
Roller skating.
So
Sorry, not roller skating, skateboarding.
he was skateboarding.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, well, that's the story that was given,
So
that
when
he
did you
was.
when you did you find it out there? When did you find it out?
No, the next day when I got the call, because I got home late and I went to bed, turned off my phone. When I got up the next morning, there was a dozen phone calls. And when I picked up the phone, and asked what is going on, they said my son was found dead.
So then, and you said that time your son weren't living with you.
He was not living with me, but he was living with his dad, not too far away.
When was the last time you saw him before that? Did you see him recently before that time?
I saw him. I took him out to dinner at his favorite place about 2 weeks before, and I remember I had this ominous feeling. I had this ominous feeling. And I said to
Wow.
myself, I wonder if he's getting to that stage where he's a teenager and boys get in trouble. And I kept saying, I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
something is going to happen, like he gets in
Mm-hmm.
a fight or
Mm-hmm.
he's on drugs or whatever. You have this. I don't know why I
Yeah.
had this in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I got the call, my first thought was he had gotten into a fight. He probably stabbed somebody and he's in jail. So I was crying, and I'm saying that my son, I'm sure my son is probably in jail. He's in jail. And little when I heard, no, he had died.
Wow.
It really really broke my heart.
Wow.
Really really broke my heart.
Wow. My,
So
my sympathy for you. My sympathy and my empathy
yeah.
for you. Wow. We
But
have
that's when
something.
the drama started, actually.
Okay, so drama started there.
That's when the drama started. Yeah, at the funeral. My ex-husband didn't want me to be at the funeral, so he gave me the wrong. He planned the funeral, gave me the wrong place. And of course, I found out at the last minute where the funeral was going to be, and he tried to have me removed.
So he's really cold.
Tried to have me removed, and so going in, okay, the car. I'm finally managed to get into a car, okay, one of the limos with my children, and we got to the church, and I went behind the coffin, and he felt he should have been behind the coffin with his new wife.
Hmm.
So he tried to push me away, and I
Wow.
pushed him, and we pushed all the way to the door of the church. He's pushing me away, and I'm pushing him, and I'm like, this is crazy. So when I got to the door, and I pushed him, and then I got in, and so I was able to go in behind the coffin and sit. The undertaker put me to sit in the seat of the mother, but he wanted his new wife to be there, the seat of honor, he felt. So he tried to
Wow.
throw me out of the um, and he came over to me, and he came up in my face and told me I had to leave
At the funeral,
at the funeral. Of course,
was he grieving?
definitely not. He just wanted his wife to be in the seat
Because
of honor.
I'm wondering if he's grieving, where did all this animosity come from to try to settle score at this point in the time of
Well,
grief?
uh, well, to do all that he did for the divorce, there had to be long seated animosity, and I think it had to do with, some people are threatened by your success,
Yeah.
and they really feel like they want to tear you down, and whatever. But I don't want to talk too much about his attitude,
Yeah.
but I can
Wow.
tell you that God showed up for me, because for the first time people saw who he really was when he behaved like that. He came up
Wow.
over to me and asked me to leave, and people were like, is he crazy? And I've been telling people all along, he is a crazy, but they said
Those
it for
people
themselves.
knew that's your son.
Huh, I'm sorry.
People knew that was your son.
Yes. Yeah, because I invited my church, a lot of my church members came, and they knew it was my son. But it amazed me how, for the first time, he exposed his
Hmm.
behavior to everyone, and I remained very calm. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, if it were in my earlier days, I would have knocked him out at that funeral.
so
But
so um
God,
so um did you get a chance? Did you What kind of grieving process were you able to go through in that time when you've been distracted by his animosity
not
and
a
one?
lot, not a lot. But over the years, God has really ministered to me, and bring healing
Hmm.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hatred and the animosity I had for him, now I what I have is pity, that people who behave that way ought to be pitied,
I can understand.
and let God deal with them. So that's my victory, and I just wanted to add that even despite all of that, God has maintained my joy, and I think that's the victory. That despite all that I've gone through, I've lost my precious son. I still have joy. I still celebrate the Lord. I still can praise His name. So even through your worst situation, God can bring you out and give you joy, and you can celebrate His name. And that's how I want it to end. That I do have a lot of joy despite the trials, despite the tribulations, despite the ups and downs. I still have joy. I still love the Lord. I love Him more every day. And and what the devil meant for evil, God has used it for His good, and that's what I wanted to.
My friends, I've been talking to Dr. Judith Duncker. I've just gotten to know her in the distance a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, if I would say, and I discovered by just listening to her conversation on subject and realized that she had something to offer. I had no clue. I had no clue that her story could have been what I heard tonight. I mean, I could not imagine a story like that. Could not even imagine it. You asked me to, if you asked me to imagine a weird story, a crazy or some crazy stories that the normal man mind cannot comprehend. I couldn't come up with some of the things that she talked about tonight. It's incredible how God works and what He's able to do, and we can't see it until we're able to look back and be blown away at what God is able to do. And that's what I've discovered from her story. And by the way, I haven't even gotten a chance to tap into how well she served and serves at church, and how much she is still working and serving at her church for 20 plus years, somewhere thereabout. And I would need another moment just to kind of give you a synopsis of the things that she's involved in. Like, I have to ask myself, how many things can one person be involved in at a church? It's like a bus carrying a load of passengers, and there are passengers everywhere. That's how that's the little example I could give you how involved she is at her church. Do I start to call some of these? Do I want to start a call? It's just too many, too many. And plus, and by the way, she has degrees and degrees and degrees and diplomas and certificates. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back another time and talk a little bit more to Dr. Dunker, because her story is just breaking. Does anybody want to ask Dr. Dunker a question? Maybe how to ride through a storm? Anybody want to ask her a question? Where do you get a smile in the midst of a storm? Anybody, if you want to ask her a question, you can tap it right in there. I'm going to give a couple of minutes to say, does anybody want to ask her a question or say anything to Dr. Dunker? Incredible, incredible, incredible stories. I've never heard anything like this, and I'm sure maybe 90% of the people who are listening cannot imagine stories like these. Anybody want to talk to Dr. Dunn? Give you a chance to ask her a question. Oh my God! Whew. Until he
If not,
finds
I
some.
can. If not, I can tell a story or two. No,
So,
I don't have a
no.
blog. No, Chaplain Sandy, I don't have a blog. I'm too lazy to write.
Uh,
Uh,
no, she doesn't have a blog, but she's being tempted now to begin to write something. So I think she's thinking
yeah.
about that.
Yeah. I just wanted to just one add one more thing about something that happened in yes, Dr. Ming, Reverend Dale prophesied that I was going to write a book. She prophesied that over me last week, Reverend Dale. So I just wanted to make that. Um, I just wanted to add one thing that occurred in the Zoom room. Um, and for those of you who don't know what the Zoom room is, it's the Caribbean International Prayer Movement. They have every day they have a meeting, prayer, intercession, word. I mean, awesome. And I remember I talked about one day I said, whenever one of the ways that God directs me is, and when He's about to do something big in my life, He plays the song "Great Is Thy Faithfulness."
Great is thy
I know
faithfulness.
in 2 to 5 days there's going to be a miracle. While we were in the Zoom room, I mentioned this about we were singing. They asked for your favorite song. I gave mine, "Great Is Thy Faithfulness," and I said to somebody, "Can you anybody want to sing that song?" And nobody sang it. Then I had to leave to a funeral. When I walked in the door, the lead singer in the funeral just burst out singing "Great Is Thy Faithfulness," and I was just so overwhelmed. I just started crying, crying, crying. Um, but I shared this in the Zoom room, but I didn't share the miracle that happened after that.
Mm.
Because at the time that I shared it, the miracle had not occurred. You will see on my in my
Bio.
bio that I was invited to join a program that was offered by the United Nations University
Mm-hmm.
in Bruges, which is in Belgium. They have a school of diplomacy, and they joined with the University of Vienna, has one of the best diplomatic training programs in the world. Both sort of collaborated to do an intense diplomatic training program, and I was invited.
That was just last year.
This was just recently,
Yeah.
while in the Zoom room.
Wow.
This was in September.
Wow.
So that was the miracle that came out of there. And so I've gotten updated diplomatic training from one of the best programs in the world. And of course, there's a fee for being a part of it. And I didn't have the money, and they said, "Come anyway." So that's another miracle that happened, in one of many miracles that happened as a result of that song. But this one happened in the Zoom room as a result of the Zoom room. So I just wanted to share
How
that.
how do you live your life?
Mm.
How do you live your life um with all these experiences? How do you live a normal life with all these experiences of God's work, miracles and signs and one and all? How do you get up, go to bed, get up as a normal person and go about your business? How do you process those things and remain normal?
Easily.
And I asked a question because the Apostle Paul said that he was taken up to the third heaven, and something that he saw was that they were unlawful to mention, and he said because of that there was given to him a thorn in his flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet him, to keep him human. And that was the idea of keeping him human, is because he said, lest I would be exalted above measure for my
Mhm.
experience, the things I experienced, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan that buffeted me. Uh, how do you go through your life normal with all these things that God has done for you?
God has a way of keeping my feet on the ground. The Lord will open some major, major, major opportunities one day, and then close the door
Well,
to something the next
Dr.
day.
Ming is agreeing with me that you're not normal. We.
Dr. Ming, she thinks I'm crazy, right?
Well, I don't think so, but I think we are just at a loss of the things that I'm hearing that God has done for your life.
See,
It's just
you
incredible.
have to ask the people at my church if you know how, because they keep me normal, they keep me humble.
I know you're normal because every time that I see you, you appear normal. Your conversation is normal, but I haven't seen anything strange. So but it's just fascinating that.
Even though most of them think I'm crazy, but
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't think you're really crazy,
they put
crazy.
up
Just
with
like,
me.
yeah,
They do.
wow.
Yes, but it's, you take one day at a time, and it also requires you spending a lot of time in the Word.
Whew.
I spend a lot of time in the Word daily, praying, fasting, and especially since I'm an intercessor. I have a long list of people to pray for, And so I spend a lot of my time just at the cross, reading the scriptures, studying the scriptures, praying. So you
Whew.
don't have time to be, do crazy stuff when if you are in His presence. His
Wow.
presence keeps you humble. One of the I have to tell you, those most people in your my church will know that for many years, from I joined the church, I was a part of the housekeeping ministry until COVID, when we closed down. And so I clean up the church, I clean the church, I clean the toilets, I clean whatever. And how I got to that was okay. I volunteered, they needed help, whatever. But I remember one day I was down on my knees scrubbing the toilet, and it was as if I don't know if you've ever seen this cartoon where the devil is on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. That's the experience I had. And I heard the devil say, all those degrees you have, and they have you here scrubbing toilets? You
Yeah.
must be crazy. And on the other side of the shoulder, I heard the Lord say, if I want you to scrub toilets, if you love me, you will do that for me. And the devil over here said, no, no, they should give you a better position. And it was just this conversation going back and forth. And I remember I bowed my knees and I wept. I started crying. And I said, God, keep me humble. If I
Mhm.
have to do this for the rest of my life in ministry, I am willing, because God has taken me through so many different things. I can't complain about anything that He asked me to do. I said,
Mhm.
God, I'm willing to do this. And this was many years ago. I've been in, and almost 20 years I've served in the ministry until recently. But a week after, well, not even a week, a couple of days after that experience where I dedicated my life to serving God in that ministry, I got a call to come to the White House. So I went to
Yeah.
the White House.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that. I saw that you've been to White. You know what? We're gonna have to invite Dr. Duncan to come back. There's just too many pieces to her puzzle. There are too many parts to her story. I'm sure she's just gonna give us a synopsis, just like give us some of the big highlights, big headlines. And I'm sure as we continue to have a conversation, there are gonna be pieces that we have not heard, that because the Lord's gonna bring back some more to her
Yes,
memory.
he
Because
has.
she speak as they come, so she's been around for a while, and she's had some she's traveled. She's traveled. I haven't even gone to a high point in ministry or a low point in ministry yet. But we don't want to exhaust her. We're gonna have you to stay tuned for part two of the continuation of Dr. Judith Dunker's story. I am so elated and excited and happy and filled with joy to have you. And I'm seeing them. Can we get some enough already? Okay, all right. Anybody else want to agree with me that we have a Dr. Dunker too? Who want to agree with me? Can I put an emoji or give me a signal that you're looking for Dr. Dunker too? I am so blessed to have you tonight, and I know a lot of people are fascinated with your story, and I'm sure some people are going to share your story after tonight. Some who have not yet seen it, didn't get a chance to watch it live, are going to watch it now, available on YouTube, Facebook, and also on Twitter. ORB Ministries. Send the links around to your friends. Let them listen to this story, because some people need to realize that God still watch that. You don't see what Dr. Ming said, right? She said 2 and 3. She want the book to open up right here. All right, even Sister Claudette is looking forward for part two. Thank you, my friends.
Yes,
I
Sister
appreciate
Claudette.
I appreciate you all, and thank you for joining me. I don't want to push her beyond this hour, but it has been tremendous. I have been so blessed and amazed. And I'm glad that you take the time to share this time with me and with us. And my friends, by the way, if you have a great story, If you have a great story that you think can inspire somebody, if God has been good to you, this is a good place to share your testimony of God's goodness, because every testimony is uniquely different and
Mhm.
everybody can be inspired, motivated, and encouraged by your story. And that's why I like to have people sharing their story. I did not expect this level of story. I did not. I couldn't anticipate this. I couldn't anticipate. Even if I knew you for 15 years, 20, 30 years, I couldn't anticipate what I heard from your story. You are just tremendous. May God bless you. I do you want to say what you want to say in your goodbye for tonight until later? Say goodbye until later. What you want to say? You want to say goodbye to your friends and while
I'm
those who
reading
are,
their comments
I know there are a lot of them coming in.
and I'm loving them. Good night, everyone.
God bless you, everybody. You have been a blessing. Thank you for your participation. We're excited about it. Thank you, Dr. Judith, for joining me. When we come, my friends, don't forget, follow me on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel, check out Twitter, and I am also on TikTok. ORB Ministry is on TikTok. So if you TikTok, check out for ORB Ministries. You'll find me there. We're going to take ministry everywhere. I can't get it done like Dr. Duncker as much as she has done, but I'm trying by God's help. All right. I'm trying to keep up with Dr. Duncan. Until the next time on Let's Talk with the Doc, if you have a story, email me at orbministries@gmail.com. If you have a story you want to share, or you know somebody with a great story, email me at orbministries@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to see if we can bring your story into light to be a blessing to others. All right, my friends, until next time, thank you for joining me on Let's Talk with the Doc. I will see you again next week, Wednesday, God's willing. By the way, next week, Wednesday, I have a brother he's on TikTok 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and his mission is to defend the faith. Everything about
Mhm.
law and grace. If you want
Mhm.
to talk to somebody who
Mhm.
understands the depths of law versus grace and all of the stories and all of the scriptures that to look into, he should be on my program next week, and I can't wait to have him on. So stay tuned, because you never know what's next or who will join the
Mhm.
conversation. I'll see you next week. You can still share, and if you missed the beginning, go back after this and listen it and digest it and see the manifestation of God's mighty hand. I'll see you next week, my friends. Peace be unto every one of you. Well, thank you for checking in on ORB Ministries. I trust that you will share with your friends, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, and stay tuned, because you never know what's next or who will join the conversation.